Yeah, morning, Eric.
Morning, Mr. King.
Okay, so today we talk about podcasting. Yep, podcasting become more and more popular. I believe that many people can feel it, especially for people already started to use it. Yep, and uh, have you started to use it?
Of course.
For how long already?
This is hard to tell. Mm, I think I start to use maybe 1.5 years
Oh,
ago.
wow, it is long.
Mm.
Yep.
But first thing, how do you define podcast?
Podcast. I actually didn't refer it to radio. Uh, do you treat radio the same as podcast?
No,
No. Okay, me
definitely
too.
no.
Mm. Yep. So podcast, I would refer to uh, uh, actually is the audio, and then you can choose what to play, what you want to listen to. So I think audiobook actually I will include in uh audiobook 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 maybe uh I don't know whether audiobook is a type of podcast, but the logic is the same. You can choose what book you want to listen to.
But to me, audiobook is not a podcast.
Mm. Yep.
And for my definition, podcast is something like there's at least mm, at least there's one host, at
Mm.
least there's one interviewer, and then they have a communication. It's that
Oh.
simple.
Mm. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So my first question first to discuss why do you think podcast podcasting will become popular? Because if we compare many other things, for example, radio, for example, books, for example, videos, yep, and for example, maybe the short clips on Instagram and Facebook. There are so many things that people can uh, access to. But why podcasting will become popular? Because podcasting only provide audio, not the video.
And one thing I want to make I want to make it clear is
Mm,
my most important and the single platform for me to listen to podcast is just YouTube. Mm,
oh,
yeah, and I don't think okay. Maybe maybe you think that you got video, it couldn't count as podcast,
mm,
but I
yep,
don't think so. Okay, just uh just look at my definition. It can well suit to the podcast. And so you still can see the screen. I mean, it still can in a video form.
mm,
And for example, maybe it's like a Zoom meeting, or maybe the people face to face talk to each other, or
mm,
maybe just like our conversation is
mm,
also can be kind of can be count as a podcast in my definition.
mm,
And if you ask me why it becomes so popular, and I would say compared to video, compared to mass media, compared to uh, other advertisements on maybe social media or other like drama,
yep,
this is not real. What I mean is not real. Okay, first thing is this is not live. What I mean live is they choose what they want to show you.
mm,
Yeah, but
yep,
podcast is not the same thing. It's kind of mm, it's kind of like very in Chinese. I want to say in Chinese. I want to say okay. I certainly forget the terms. But it's kind of like the feedback, and also when you ask the interviewer when you ask the interviewer questions, when the host telling something is very instant and kind of like no preparations. Yeah. So that first thing to me is real. And the second thing is because it provide value. What do I mean provide value? Because I can really know what they think. For example, a very, very popular person that they have invited us into a podcast. Let's say Ray Dalio, maybe other very popular investors, and I can really listen to what they say, and I can really try to put myself into their shoes, and then think like they think, really kind of like guess what's in their mind and how they think an issue. And also, the host is very important role. A good host, a host with high abilities, they can ask a very critical question, and then so it can bring the conversation to another level. And it cannot be found in a traditional media. What I mean traditional media is not only restricted what you watch on the TV. It also could on the social media platform. It also could be on YouTube. For example, the video published from the CNBC or some other like more professional, more traditional company in the media, traditional media company. And because the host is the employee, they're scared to say something wrong. It's kind of like a plan. Their question is kind of like the fix. And I don't like it because this is not real and it didn't provide much value for me to understand what is in the interviewer mind, what is in the interviewee mind.
Yep. So it means podcasts actually provide a platform which is good for discussion, and then can talk into like detail. You can know more from the topic that they discuss, is it? Because they are like not it is not one way, it is like two way communication. Yep. And then it is real. Yeah, this is right. It is not like some others TV dramas, something like that. Yep. And also podcasting, we can choose what to listen to, right? Compared to radio. Radio is quite passive to me, I think, which is like you can only switch the channel, but you couldn't choose what you want to listen, what topic, specific one to listen to. But podcasts give you the chance to choose what you want to listen to according to what topic you search for, right?
But I don't compare podcasts with the radio because after I grew up and I never listened to the radio. Why you should do that? Why you want to listen to radio? No point. There's no point. They all this industry already dead.
Yeah.
How I compare is I compare podcasts with a video, various of video you can watch from YouTube.
Mm.
The short video you can watch from the TikTok or other. How do you compare them?
Yep. So for podcasts, yeah, I think it is true that it's really good for discussion. Just like our conversation, we can discuss a lot, and if necessary, we can discuss in deep. Compared to video, because video they need to like focus on the video, and then they want to catch the audience eyeball. So yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean focus on video?
Because some other videos, we're not talking about the podcast. Some other videos they want to like make it interesting, so they just find something which they can entertain you, and then many of them is like one way also. There is no, like you say, the host and the interviewee.
But not, but not many, but not all. I mean, not all YouTube video or the video on other platforms
Mm.
is for entertainment. It could be for learning purpose. But how do you compare them from with the podcast? What is the strength? What is the advantage of podcast?
Yeah, I think podcast can discuss the opinion of something. Of course, video can do, but one advantage for podcast is you can do that when you are doing something else. For example, commuting to work. It is easier. For video, you have to.
But you also can do for video, right?
Yeah, but you have to stay your. You have to stay at the screen, right?
Why? To be honest to yourself, you have never not look at the screen, just listens to the audio. But it is but the YouTube video, I mean it's the screens, and also it is a video. It is not like a fixed picture. Have you ever did that?
Are you referring to podcast or other video?
Other video.
Other video. For other video, of course, I will look at the screen.
Have you ever tried not to look at the screen, just listen to what they say?
Yes. I did.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I think the main difference can be the host, whether they have the host, and whether the discussion is one way or two way.
Yeah, in my opinion, okay, some video they kind of like make it a very good structure, and then they kind of like ask a question and answer the question by themselves. It seems like the whole video is quite structured. It's quite structural and also quite systemic, and also quite comprehensive. The logic in the video is quite comprehensive, but it just come from their own mind, and then they give you. They show you how to think. They give you the direction. But this is not real. It's actually not real. Just like I can match all the logic to you, but you have your own question. Yeah, of course you have your question, but you have to follow my logic, because you cannot ask me. This is a video. And you will just follow their logic, and then you listen and watch until the end, and then you think you are learning something, but you just have watched something. Doesn't mean that you have learned something. learning come from hardware. Yeah.
Mm.
You must use thinking.
Yep.
You must think what you have learned in order. You must think what you have listened, what you have watched, the information, the inputs, and then you need to process. And also at the end, you still need to output.
Yep.
But here, we don't talk about output. Output is another stage, and it cannot be done by just listening to the podcast, by just watching a video. We just talk about the second part. The first is the input, the second is the output.
Yep.
For me, podcast have the advantage for you to think about the topic. And the host can ask a very critical question, and you can think. And the interviewee will also think to answer the question. There's no preparation. And they also try to think how to explain to you.
Yep.
And smart people, their talking and also their thinking is very structural, is highly logical. What I want to say is they can map out the logic to you by using a plain English. But if you ask them to write a book, they can make it more structural. But you couldn't understand very nuances, every detail. But when you speak to them, and you can say, hold on, how do you define this thing? How do you see this thing? Why would you say ABC like this?
Yep. Yep.
So for example, you have read the whole book talking about podcasts, but at the end I ask you, how do you define podcast? And then suddenly you don't know. Yeah. And I ask you how the book author define podcast. So it's a critical question, just like our conversation.
Yep.
When I realize that I don't understand what you're talking, because I aware that we may not have the same definition on podcasting. So I make it clear first, and then we have the deep discussions.
Yep. Yep. For here, right? Before this, I thought podcasting has only audio and has got no video, and I also forget to include YouTube as one of the channel we can listen to podcasts. Yeah, and for me, the podcasting platform or the app that I use is Google Podcast, and the other one is the app that I downloaded yesterday, which is the Spotify. Yeah, both of the apps only supported audio, so I thought podcast is only for audio. Yeah, but it is not. Yep. And then yeah, so just now you say podcast actually create an environment that the guest and the host, they can express their opinion and then like asking questions. However, on the other side, the video, it seems like they have a plan, story or script. They just read it out, and then it is a little bit like read out an article or what, right, for video. Yeah, but for podcast, it is not. It is like one question and then discussion, something like that. Yep. And yeah, so you're using YouTube as the podcast. So do you mean you just like click in what do you, I mean, the keyword for you to search for that? Do you have because I haven't tried using YouTube for podcasting. So how do you look for the videos on YouTube? I mean the
Okay.
podcast.
Yeah. You said. What is the last podcast you have listened to? What's the name of the podcast? What's the topic? What's the title?
For me, because actually, to be frank, I am new to podcast. So yesterday I tried Spotify, and then it surprised me because I found Lao Gao's podcast on Spotify.
Yeah. But it should just copy the audio
Yep.
from the real video.
Yes,
It's
they take
just
away the video.
and make it become like a podcast.
Yeah.
So not make it become podcast, but just make it just only audio. But to me, there's no podcast in my definition. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is that simple. So that just like you do the Google search.
Yeah.
You can use yahoo.com to do the search. You can use Firefox to do the search. You can use google.com to do the search. You can use like the Bing to do the search. You can search on YouTube. You can search on TikTok. You can find something you want to learn. You want to know more. You want to explore. So if you ask me, how do I search something, I don't know how to answer you.
Okay. Do you have to include the word podcast in your search?
Yeah. No.
Then the result come out. Not all of them are podcasts, right? Some of them are just one way. Yeah. So how do you know that a video is like is podcast, not only video?
Another question is, why do I need to restrict myself on podcasts if I want to learn new things, if I want to explore new areas?
Yep. So it means you don't limit yourself to choose whether it's a podcast or video. Yep.
Yeah. But sometimes podcasts in the top result, and then the quality and also the information dense is much better than others. And when I want to, and of course, I have some of the favorite podcaster. Yeah. So, and because I subscribe them, and when there's a new video, the YouTube will recommend the video to me. And when I search something, YouTube will first recommend the relevant video from them to me.
Yep. So beside YouTube, do you use other application for
no
podcasting? No. Yep. Actually, I think I need to try using YouTube as the podcasting. Actually, I'm using it already, I think. But for podcasting, I think it actually gives me a different experience. I mean, the podcasting apps, whether it's Spotify or Google Podcasts, actually there are it is not like YouTube, because YouTube, like you said, you don't limit yourself to watch videos or the podcast. But for podcasts, to me it is more like a radio. But the radio, you can choose what topic to listen to. The radio here, I'm not referring to like the radio which play music a lot. It's not like that one. It's the type of radio channel that they talk a lot. They discuss things a lot. Yeah, like BBC, something like that.
But wouldn't it like just same as like the radio? Is it just a passive how to say, you couldn't really find the topic, the narrow topic you really want to explore. You didn't like just really want to learn something. You want to learn a particular information, a particular piece of information. But you just maybe you have free time. You just want to try. You just want to relax, and then you think you think maybe while you are driving, you think, oh, okay, I can listen to some audiobook. I can learn some new knowledge. So I listen to podcasts, but I just simply click in. Okay, I'm interested in the business. I'm interested in the economic. I just click into economic, and then I simply click one video.
Yeah, you're right. When I click in the podcast apps, I have this kind of feeling, which is like, okay, they give me this kind of options, and then I choose which one I like, and then yeah, it is quite passive. It is not like actively search or look for what you want to watch or listen to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think this is also one of the difference for the learning methods. You can choose whether you prefer the passive learning or whether you prefer the active learning.
Yep.
And also, for example, like in the Carnival's video review and the first video, this is also podcast, you know.
Yep. To me, it is like more like the podcast, because if we didn't watch the video, then actually it's quite the same. I mean, the information that we get.
Yeah, and also YouTube has once, yeah. If you want to say whether I can choose you, whether I prefer to choose YouTube or Spotify or some Google Podcasts, and what's the reason I prefer YouTube? There's actually only one reason. You know what's the reason?
It is the biggest.
Biggest? Why? Oh.
Yeah, the most data on it.
It could be, but if you try to do the searching, if you really want to listen to maybe the same podcast, for example, like the Carnivore Diet podcast, you can also find on other platforms, because this platform is also big enough. Many people using it, and people have their own clip. They will post on the YouTube. They also post their audio on the Spotify. They'll post on the Google Podcast. Yeah. So YouTube is still the biggest, but this is not the main reason why I prefer YouTube, because you see, there's two piece of same information. One published on YouTube, one published on podcast. The podcast platform, Spotify, Google Podcast. Why you prefer podcast rather? Why you prefer podcast over than the YouTube, or why you prefer YouTube but not the podcast platform? What's the reason?
For me, actually, I like I said, I'm just new to podcasts, especially the apps. Spotify I just installed yesterday.
No, I mean, because just now I say I prefer YouTube than podcast, right? The podcast platform. So do you know what's the reasons?
Is it the user experience, something like easy to use, or you can find some information which the podcasting apps didn't give? For example, I'm not sure. The number of views, is it shown in the podcast app? but for YouTube they have, right? How many
Mm.
views they have, and then also for the comments part, only YouTube provide, but podcasting apps they didn't allow you to comment. If you are referring to the Spotify and Google podcasts, you couldn't comment and you couldn't look at other people's comment.
Yeah, this is a very, and also this is a good reason, but this is not my reason.
Oh,
And I mean, this is a good reason. This is also one of the advantage of the YouTube. Yeah, I totally agree. And the single most important reason why I prefer YouTube over all the other podcasting platform
Mm.
is because YouTube provide the subtitle.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yesterday
Yeah.
I also tried Spotify and Google Podcast to see whether they can give the subtitle, but they couldn't.
Yeah, and YouTube will kind of like will kind of like create a subtitle automatically.
Mm.
So
Yep.
even though the YouTuber they don't include their own self-made the subtitle, the YouTube will do that. Yeah, as long as the YouTube link is not that long.
Yep.
It's like more than, I think it's around more than 2 hours, or sometimes it's not fixed. Yeah, more than a certain length, and then the YouTube is not going to help you make the subtitle. I don't know why.
Mm.
Yeah, and yeah, so this is a very, very big advantage to me.
Yep.
Yeah, because I do the active learning, and sometimes I really, really need to listen back, and then I really need to see the subtitle and to understand what the interviewee is trying to say, and how they answer the question. And yeah.
Yeah, it is just effective, right? We want to know what he is saying, and subtitle is the best. I mean, to understand, you can see, you can understand easily.
Yeah, you can check the vocab. You can
Yep.
check the jargons if you not understand.
Right.
Yeah, and if you do it on the podcast, listen to podcast, it's just kind of like come and pass, come and go. So it yeah, because it's designed for passive learning. Yeah, of course, for native English speaker, they can just use their listening skill, and then they can understand it. Yeah, but for non-native, but for non English native speaker, our listening skill is not that high, and if the topic is different, if this is a topic, the area we not very familiar, and also we still want to learn, and they should have a lot of jargon, they should have a lot of vocab, which commonly used in this area, but you have never came across if you don't touch into the area.
Yeah, for example, ketogenic diet, Mediterranean diet. If I don't read the book, I have no idea what is that.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think I have covered the things that I want to discuss. How about you? Do you have any other questions or things want to discuss?
Yeah, one of the advantage one of the benefit, it's not advantage, but one of benefits from my experience is many times the podcast I listen to, and then when the interviewee answers some question, it will say, "Oh, there's one book called, let's say like blah blah blah," and then in that book there's a part talk about like this, or there's a quote something like that, and then so what does it mean? It means it's kind of like a book recommendation. And the interviewee share a book that he or she read in the past. And so it linked me to the book. And then it's kind of like a reference, so that I can, if I'm interested enough, I can search the book to read.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it will also link to some website, some other maybe new apps, or some other like authors, or some other like people, and you can search the people. We can try to learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, it also can be done in video.
Yes.
But in video, they seldom refer to the book. I will say like this.
Yeah, less likely. But for the Monday review videos, you will see one video I share. They talk. He actually recommend or refer to the book, and he speak out the name of the book. Also.
You mean the next sessions?
Yeah, our video review.
Yeah, I have watched. I have watched all of them, but yeah, there's a question I want to ask you. Why all the video is in Chinese?
Yeah, but I think only got one of them.
No, three of them speaking Chinese. Two of them got English subtitle. Only one of them don't have English subtitle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at that time it seems like I used Chinese as the word to look for.
But why?
Yeah, but actually, I remember I used dopamine track to look for, but the result comes out. Some of them hashtag the dopamine track. So
yeah, I know. But why you choose the Chinese, the Chinese video? Why don't you choose English video?
Yep. Yeah, actually, I didn't think much. I just like click. I just see which video may related to what we want to discuss, and then I click in. Yeah, I just didn't realize so much.
Yeah. And for me, I try to avoid using the Chinese to search the information. It's also my strategy for the active learning. And because first thing is Chinese video, their quality isn't that good. Yeah, I mean the overall quality isn't that good compared to English. Of course, there are many Chinese video. They film in a good quality. They share a very deep knowledge, but just isn't that many, just isn't that much. And also because now we are learning English. Yeah, and also the second is if you learn the technical things, like maybe like the dopamine inside, they will have a lot of jargons. What you will learn is the Chinese jargons.
Yeah.
And then when you learn the Chinese jargon, what will you do? You try to search.
Yeah,
will you
translate.
But will you translate to English to do the searching, or you just search the Chinese and then look at Chinese? Many times, I mean, for my experience, many times, if I didn't kind of like keep the awareness, and I would just use the Chinese to search, and then the whole knowledge I built, I built on I mean the huge knowledge I learned, the huge things I learned on that topic will be Chinese, will be something like a Chinese knowledge. So as more I do, I using Chinese to do the searching for the particular area, for the particular topic. The more I do, the more difficult I quick, the more difficult I translate the Chinese into English, turn it from a Chinese knowledge into the English knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course,
it's like when you choose which language, and then you will look more information in that language, right?
Not only this, but YouTube will recommend you Chinese video.
Yeah.
And then, but of course, I have the awareness. So even though I try to, sometimes I want quick. I want really. I want a short understanding about something. Sometimes I will use Chinese. But I will balance them. I will balance them out. Not only using Chinese, but also use English.
Yeah.
For example, our last conversation, our last Monday review topic, there's one term in Chinese which is called 人文主义. But what does it mean in English? Yeah. What's the verb? I mean, what is the vocab? What's the word in English? 人文主义.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's called the humanism. So it's a human. So for example, like we got like, for example, like the minimalist or minimalism. We got like materialism. It's something like the lism is something like a culture or ideology, right? The nism. And then the first part, maybe the minimal or the material, is something like a culture or ideology. They prefer something. And humanism means that we believe in human. We believe in ourselves. We don't believe in God. We are the God. Yeah. And also, especially the book is the English origins. So that means the author using the English to write the book. So people translate it into the Chinese. And when the video they make in Chinese, and also they read the Chinese book, or even though they don't read the English book, they make video in Chinese, they need to translate. And when you do the translation, the information will just lost. It is kind of like the energy. You convert the kinetic energy to the electricity energy. You have some losses. For example, you convert the solar energy to electricity, you will have some losses. This is the same. This is just a physics. You convert English into Chinese, they will have some information, which is the role same as the energy we just lost. And you never know what is the losses.
Unless we compare two languages, maybe they have two videos. One is English, one is Chinese, and they are talking exactly the same thing. Then we can compare.
Or you try to learn more. You try to learn more in that topic using English. So it make the point that why you want to use Chinese to search the thing at the first place. Yeah. So and also in Chinese, the information is not that complete or it's not that comprehensive. It's not that much. It just isn't that much compared to English. Yeah. And I'm more willing to build my knowledge based on English language. Yeah. So for example, right now, all of my knowledge is kind of like the jargons. I'm more familiar with the English jargons than the Chinese jargons. So it is one of the indicator you can determine whether your English is based on the English or based on the Chinese. And it could be the loop. It could be the feedback loop. The more you do, and then the more you give yourself an environment that you are in the English, you keep using English. Yeah. So at least for me, I mean, I would try to avoid use the Chinese to search something if I want to really actively learn a particular area, particular topic. Yeah. So because I don't know you, because of course everyone have their own choice, everyone have their own priority, everyone have their own purpose. Yeah. But I just give you my own perspective to let you see whether you think this is a good way, you think it's a better way of doing things. Yeah, it's also similar to, it's also same for the reason why I use English to do the journaling. Yeah, because journaling is also it's an output, you know. Just like the it actually also mentioned in the next Monday video review. Yeah, the journaling, but even exclude that, you also know that journaling is a good way to output your mind, to really write something, to really record something, to convert the input and process and convert the input and process the input, become an output. Yeah. So and also when I write the article, I prefer using English to write the article, to write an essay. So yeah, it's also a way to learn. This is active learning. Yeah, and also one another indicator to see whether your language is built on the English or built on the Chinese. You can try to see if the topic you try to use Chinese to write an article, you find it very, very difficult compared to using English. Then that means the English is built on English. If you found that the topic is very difficult to write in English for you, then that means compared to Chinese, that means the knowledge is built on Chinese language. Yeah, and it also can be applied on the podcast. Yeah, even though the English is not our native language, it's not our mother language, but I still prefer to use English to when I choose the video, when I choose a podcast, because I want to build my knowledge on English rather than Chinese. And also,
really, there are a lot of jargon here.
Yeah, and also one another thing is there isn't that much Chinese podcast, right?
Yeah, the number of information. Let's say YouTube is, I think, of course, English is still the dominated language on YouTube. So the sources of information is also more about English YouTuber. Yeah.
Yeah, and just now, I make one point, which is about the real podcast is more real than video, and I also found that in Western country, they understand more the idea, which is be transparent and also be honest.
Yeah.
Try to express yourself, not try to fake yourself compared to Chinese culture. Compared to Chinese version. They try to be honest, they try to be transparent, they try to express the idea in their mind. Yeah, and because it written in their constitutions, and the first amendment is kind of like the free speech, is the freedom. They really understand it. They really, or maybe they make it become a culture, and it is a very, very good culture. Yeah. And compared to Chinese, the main source, the source of the information, the biggest source of the information come from China, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you can say Taiwan is also quite a lot. Okay. Yeah, but China, Taiwan, or maybe other, but they apply on the same Chinese culture, and if you just they more or less they are similar. And if you look at the China culture, you can see that it didn't kind of like want to express themselves. It didn't kind of like want the transparent. it built a wall and block the internet. And people need to use a VPN in order to access like Facebook, to access like Google, to access like YouTube. The culture is not promoting transparent. It's not promoting freedom. It's not promoting express yourself. It's not promoting free speech, freedom to say anything you want to say. And then you can see government block. A government can block the account, and all the internet company will just listen to the government. If the government say, okay, block this person, the internet company will just block.
Yeah.
Or maybe some articles, some forums, for example, the lie down forum, the forum discuss lie down, the post. Government say, okay, I want to ban this post. I ask the forum owner to delete the post, and the forum owner just delete. But how about in Western? Of course, still have this kind of case, but it is less, much less than that. Yeah. So if you pursuing something real, will you prefer to learn the knowledge in Chinese or learn the knowledge in English? I prefer English. This is also one of the reasons, because it's kind of like the filter out. Yeah, but of course not all the Chinese YouTubers they're telling the fake. They are not telling the truth. They are not express themselves. What I want to say is the overall.
Yeah.
And if this is an overall, I can use this as a filter. I filter out them. Just like, for example, you don't want to marriage, you don't want to find a girlfriend that don't like exercise, and then maybe you just exclude all the fat girls, or the fatty girl. Maybe this is your choice. And there's no wrong, there's no right. You can use it as tool. You can use this as a signal to filter out something. Just like let's say if I'm so bad and I don't want to make friends with poor, I can just look at their car, or maybe look at their house, the size of their house, look at their job, and if they have if their job is kind of like the blue collar, I just don't want to make friends with them. I can also do this kind of filter. And this is a choice whether it harm me or not. This is another thing.
Yeah, but it is somehow more convenience, right? a more
Mm.
convenient way to do the screening instead of like to analyze them one by one.
Yeah, and this is a strategy.
Mm.
Mm.
Yep.
Mm.
Right. So yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, me too. All right.
Okay.
So talk to you tomorrow, Eric.
Yeah, talk to you tomorrow, Mr. K.
Good.